this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. Competition out there is fierce, and I am here with my guest to have a conversation about the fact that it doesn't need to be that way. And so we're going to talk about how we have use that mindset in the work that we do. So Rebeca Gilbert, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I am really happy to have you. You are another example of how the retreats that I attended this year continue to reap benefits, and it's like the gift that keeps on giving. So we had connected earlier this year on Laura's retreat, and then from there, it's just so many opportunities to kind of reconnect, follow what's going on in people's worlds. And I know your practice has taken some transitions, which we'll get to. So introduce yourself to the audience, give us the background and what you're currently doing.
Sure. And I'll give you this short version and then we can dig in more later. So I'm Rebeca Gilbert. I've been in therapist for about 16 years now. And I've worked in many different iterations of the job. I've done community mental health. I've done in-school therapy, nonprofit, group counseling, and then kind of transitioned in and out of different things. But now I live in the state of Florida, and I am rebuilding my virtual private practice, and primarily specialize in doing EMDR for women that want to transfer like what they know in their head to kind of live embodied. So holistic EMDR therapy for women is what I specialize in.
Wow. Well, so let's start with that. So you moved and you made a transition. And so you're pivoting to a virtual practice with a very clear niche. Tell us about what that has been like.
Yeah. So what kind of got me to here, or kind of curious what part you would be helpful for me to
Yeah, so if you want to share what got you there, we always love the backstory, but then what that process has looked like and how it's been, because I'm sure that there are listeners who maybe have found themselves in a similar situation, or it's something that may ultimately happen. And we have so many opportunities now with virtual counseling, but I'm sure that that transition in and of itself can be difficult. So.
Absolutely. So for me, I had finally transitioned from a group to a solo practice. I trained in EMDR, and that gave me a lot of confidence that like, okay, I have a clear niche. So that's when I went solo, and I loved in-person solo. Had my little brick and mortar with my name on it, and I loved it. But life changed, and family medical stuff came up. And as a mom, a working mom of 2 elementary age kids, it just was taking a toll on my body that felt like it was crashing with my integrity. I was inviting my clients to do mind, body, spirit work, and I was coming in and my body was a wreck.
Yeah.
And so I knew something needed to change for me to be sustainable and not burn out in the field long term. And so that was before COVID. And so I decided to take a 6-month sabbatical to just reevaluate and just sort out how to go from here. I felt like I didn't want to give up my job, and I needed to find a way to be woman, mom, person, and therapist in a better way. And so I took a 6-month sabbatical. In the middle of that, COVID hit. And so moved out of state to a new place. And so I found myself like, okay, I took a sabbatical. I have clients in Georgia that are saying, hey, when you come back to work, I'd love to see you.
Okay.
I'm living in a new state, Florida, starting to network and build relationships here. And people are like, I'd like to see you too. And the pandemic really changed our relationship with Zoom work and virtual work. So all of a sudden, I feel like I have all these components. I'm like, well, I have Georgia people that want to see me. I have this platform that allows me to deliver virtual therapy. And why not? So it just kind of was birthed out of this need to be more flexible and work and serve my clients while taking care of my family. And then I thought it was going to be temporary during the pandemic. But I decided that it's a better fit for me and for my family. It just gives us better, I like to call it work-life magic, because balance is just a whole, like, I won't get into that soapbox right now. But, you know, it just felt like much,
impossible.
yeah, I know. But it just felt so much better to go, okay, this is how I can see people in Georgia and Florida.
Yes.
And still take care of my body. And if I need to, I can go on a walk and I can go to my kitchen and I can eat lunch. And when my kids come from school, I'm here to greet them. And so it just seemed like a better fit for our family. And my clients really appreciated most of my clients really liked the flexibility of virtual. A lot of my clients are in Atlanta and traffic there's a mess. So for them, in person wasn't an option because I'm in Florida now.
Right.
So it just kind of worked out. And now even though I could see folks in Florida in person here, I prefer to offer virtual work and then in-person intensives as needed. But it's just been a better fit for me and my family. And I can still offer high quality care.
Well, I am so happy to hear that it all worked out for you. I'm sure there were a few moments throughout that journey where you might have panicked a little bit and anticipation of, is this all going to work out? But I think the key, and what the pandemic has taught all of us, is that need to be ready to pivot and kind of go in a different direction when we need to. And that some good things have come out of that. So you mentioned a couple of things that I think are so important to point out, especially with the line of work that we're in. You had mentioned how you were doing the work and you were advising clients on the things that you were learning and recognizing that you weren't necessarily practicing that yourself and you needed to make some changes in order to be able to do that, which I just commend you for, because I think that we can get into the work and before we know it, we're busy and we're caught up in the whirlwind. And I'm such a huge proponent of that check-in and where are we at and what are the things that we need to be doing differently, practicing what we preach, etc. And then the other piece about how you were really focusing the whole time on what was best for your family and that you were able to find something that was really conducive to everyone. So where are things at this point? So you are strictly virtual for both with no intention of in-person, but you said the intensives.
Yeah. So that's that's been what I've been experimenting lately. Yeah. I offer intensives virtually too. And I have a partnership with a practice in town, which has been a great marketing opportunity. And so I have a practice in town that I'm aligned with, and I just rent space from them for intensives as needed.
And how did that come about?
I was just networking. I bumped into a friend from graduate school and she said, "Oh, do you know so-and-so?" And I said, "I don't. I'd love to be introduced." And text message later, we met for lunch. And then we just realized we had a lot of shared values, but that I wasn't ready to join a group again. And so that was kind of a really sweet opportunity, really organic. She's like, "Oh, we don't use the offices on the weekends. And if you would do an intensive on the weekend, why not?" And so it's been an option. I've only used it once. But it's just nice to have the option in case the need presents itself. But so I'm curious to see how that'll pan out. So right now it's a possibility, but I'm really putting most of my energy into the virtual practice.
I love it. So that is a great segue into our topic today, which is
Mm-hmm.
the competition specifically that we can find in our field. And you come with this unique perspective of you were established in one state and you had your caseload, and then you made this transition and you had to reestablish yourself, and then you were able to make this connection. And so, what are your thoughts on competition in our field and kind of the mindset around it and what you found to be
Yeah.
helpful?
Yeah, that's I love talking about that because I love challenging this idea, this mindset of scarcity
Mm-hmm.
around our work. I obviously don't want people to be suffering. And there's just a lot going on in the world. Um, so, like, there's enough for all of us. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just really, again, coming back to that piece of integrity, I'm like, I don't need to compete with you
Mm-hmm.
and with, Robin and the other, other folks that we know. We,
Yeah.
if we have a clear lane,
Mm-hmm.
if we have a clear passion, or even if we don't, if we're a generalist, our personalities are going to mesh better with certain people.
True.
And so I've really made peace with I can't be all things to all people.
Mm-hmm.
And so since I can't be all things to all people, I want to be excellent in my little lane. And so I love collecting and knowing friends and colleagues that I trust and respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I always update my referral sheet. And so if I meet someone, I'm going to go on my Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to update my referral sheet. And now if somebody calls and says, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm struggling with my relationship with alcohol. I'm like, I got a girl for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can connect them to Carolyn. So I don't have to do everything. I
Yeah.
can really I feel like it gives me permission to be a niche therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever someone isn't a good fit, I can help fill somebody else's practice.
Yeah.
And so when I closed mine during my sabbatical, I helped connect and fill several colleagues' practices.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that they're full, whenever they send them back to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been this beautiful, what's the right word? Just symbiotic. Like we take care of each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, it seems very reciprocal, and
Yes, reciprocal.
it really is ultimately what is best for the clients. And if we
Yes.
operate in that mentality while simultaneously also considering what is best for us, then
Mm-hmm.
it is all going to ultimately work. So you gave some great examples of how that's played out in your life. Would you say that there was ever a shift for you in terms of your mindset around that? Or maybe you thought about competition in a different way and then based on some situations that changed, or has this always been your mentality?
That's a great question. No, and it's shifted.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a younger clinician, I felt like, okay, I need to be better than, I need to compete with so and so. And I think I used to think in categories. So, like, if you're in my age demographic and maybe in my, I would think, like, okay, if you're a female EMDR therapist in a certain age range, you're my competition. Mm-hmm. And I think it took really just saying, you know what, clarifying my lane just gave me a ton of permission to really just serve those people.
Mm-hmm.
And I had enough.
Yeah.
And so I started practicing out of that place of, okay, I'm going to practice this thing and see how it fits. And so I started practicing only saying yes to clients that were really an excellent fit.
Sure.
And then so I started referring to people, and what I saw was that I had enough. So I had to confront that fear, that scarcity mindset that there's not going to be enough. There was enough. And while I was getting the best clients and serving the best fit folks, it was a win-win for my therapeutic relationships.
Right.
Then I was also able to help other people find their best fits.
Yeah.
And so it just felt like the gift that kept on giving. Like while I was being, doing the best for me and my clients, I was also helping other people do the best work that they feel called and gifted to do. And there was just enough. And so I really had to just sit with, like, what's keeping me, if this is really the best, why wouldn't I do it? And it came down to fear of not enough.
So were there moments, I'm sure you must have had them, where the panic might have set in.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of hang in this limbo. And obviously the universe provided.
Yes.
But what got you through the interim?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the two things that come to mind are community and faith.
Mm-hmm.
I think by that point, I think I'd been in the field for, I don't know, approaching 10 years, maybe 8
Mm-hmm.
years. And I've ridden enough waves, and I had seen the ebbs and flows of clients coming in and out through all the different settings, right? Because I've done community work, school work, group practice. And I'm like, there is a rhythm. So the rhythm isn't about me personally, but there's a rhythm. So if I'm in community, there's an ebb and flow of clients. I know that October is going to be my busiest month. Every single year, October is my busiest month. It just is. And so I've just kind of had to, so I think, so maybe I'll add a third. I'll say mindset, community, and faith. And so the mindset of, I have seen this play out, and I've always had enough. Which then kind of piggybacks with faith, the trusting that I've always been provided for and it'll continue to happen has really anchored me.
Well, and I would also think that gets easier when you're in alignment. What you were speaking to before, when you're working with your ideal client, you're doing better work, they're getting more results. And then that is palpable. The people that you're connecting with in the community and those networks that you're forming, they pick up on that. And then your clients are sharing and spreading the word. And so it really is this ripple effect, but the faith is so key in that period of time where you haven't necessarily seen all the fruits of your labor or all of this play out completely yet. So those are really good key points. So I'm also thinking about the need to network and market. And how you've now had to do this in 2 places. That virtually. Are you a private pay practice?
Yes.
So that's another component.
I've always been private pay too.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tips about that. I think people are always looking for strategies to spread the word and ensure that their caseload's full.
Yeah. So, I mean, things change, algorithms change, but the things that I have found really helpful are when I'm really clear on who I serve and who I help on the work that I do, then when you are at a luncheon, a conference, or a thing, and there's a group of people and you go around and introduce yourself, if everybody says I do anxiety, depression, and we're not going to remember. We're not going to remember. So when I go in and I go, I specialize in helping women that are in this, and I give my little like elevator speech, my little thing. I'm like, I do EMDR only. That's what I do. I'm an EMDR specialist. And they go, and that starts being different. And then I'm passionate about it, which then goes into the alignment. And then I have kind of that natural evidence. So I think being really clear on what I do helps. And then people will tag me as their EMDR specialist. And now all of a sudden I'll get calls from colleagues saying, hey, I remember you said you specialize in, and I specialize in, even within EMDR, I do somatic attachment EMDR.
Okay.
So people are like, ooh, I have a question about this. And I know you're the person for this little thing. This little pocket is yours. So maybe owning your lane and being willing to just tell people that this is what you do. And then people will remember that. And then get referring folks to other therapists. That's been a really fun marketing way to market. So I'm not scared to email someone that I saw on Facebook I see a post of people and asking, we have these posts of like, I'm looking for a therapist for this type of client. And I'll see the post and then I'll message them and say, hey, I saw that we have a similar lane. I'd love to have a Zoom coffee with you and learn more about your practice so that I can know who to refer to you.
Yes, I love that. You still keep it very personal. It sounds like you prioritize spending that time because you see how worthwhile it can be.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's just really natural. I don't feel salesy. I don't feel slimy.
I'm reaching beneficial.
Exactly. And so they tell me who's a good fit for them. And most people, not always, but they'll ask who's a good fit for you. And now I'm on their radar. They're on mine.
Sure.
And so that's a lot of how I market. And then, whenever the other thing that comes to mind is I seek to volunteer. So right
Mm-hmm.
now, I just registered for a conference, a mental health conference in Florida, and I try to volunteer. And when I volunteer, I'm a little, you just talking to people. What do you
Yeah.
do? And just again, so, not being scared of connecting with other clinicians, because I see us all as being able to have like serve each other and
Mm.
it all being win-win, then I can say, hey, Julia, who do you love to work with? And that's the question that I like to ask. Who do you love working with? Who do you get excited about working with?
Yeah.
Because those are the people that I like to send your way.
I love it. There were so many good tips there. So I have to ask, whenever anyone is speaking on
Mm-hmm.
identifying your niche,
Yeah.
there's always this encouragement that if
Mm-hmm.
you do that you are obviously going to get more of your ideal client, but you're also going to get a mix, because if you can specialize in this area, then it's likely that you can
Absolutely.
treat mood disorders in general. Have you found that in your own practice?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. And I've seen that too whenever I've taken courses with our mutual friend Laura, or different like copywriting courses, or making my website, which, by the way, having a clear website and all those things are important too, because then when you have those referrals, you have to send them somewhere. Um, but but I found, and in those classes and in my experience, that being a specialist doesn't
Mm-hmm.
exclude you from anything. So, for example, my website and my niche are focused on serving women.
Mm-hmm.
But I got 2 calls this week and I just got a text earlier saying, hey, do you ever work with men? And I can go, absolutely. If it's not this issue or this issue, I'm happy to work with men. So it's not that I only serve women, it's that I seek out serving with women, and then I'll get sprinkles of other folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I specialize in EMDR, but that doesn't mean I'll have people that are looking for something else. And because you build connection and community, I'll have clients say, hey, my friend recommended you to me as a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I need, but I want you.
Yes.
And so then I'll do a consult and decide, am I a good fit for them? Or do I just need to help transfer the trust that they've placed on me onto somebody else for them to get the
Yeah.
best results? But absolutely, to answer your question, being a specialist doesn't mean you're not going to get a variety of clients. It
Mm-hmm.
just means that you are speaking to that one person and intending to attract that one, repelling the ones that are not a good fit,
Sure.
and then the mix just comes naturally and organically.
So what have you found to be the biggest return on investment in terms of your marketing efforts? So taking that time to
Mm-hmm.
grab coffee with someone, spending the time,
Mm-hmm.
volunteering and being at conferences and engaging with people, and then just speaking about the work that you do enthusiastically
Mm-hmm.
to people that are interested. But beyond that,
Absolutely.
I mean, there are so many avenues. We had talked before we started recording. I mean, podcasting is obviously an avenue. There's blog posting, there's SEO, there's social media posts. So what have you found, I guess, on the technological side of things to be the
Yeah.
most worthwhile return on investment?
Well, that's such a great question. And I think if you ask folks that are like that specialists in this, and if you go to like the groups and people ask that question a lot, um, I've heard different answers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm definitely not a SEO specialist or a specialist in those things. But what I would say is I would go back to values alignment and passion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not writing is not my favorite. So I am not going to invest a lot of time on blogging
Mm-hmm.
because I think it won't be the best way for people to get a sense of who I am and what I'm excited about. So it's much more natural for me so I guess what I would say is find where your client hangs out and
Mm-hmm.
what you're excited about, and look where that overlaps.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, blogging is not my thing, but my ideal client, I know where she hangs out on the internet. I know what kinds of things she's looking for. My ideal client goes a lot more on Facebook than on Instagram.
Okay.
And so what I'll do is I'll, try to post on Instagram and copy it to Facebook. So it's a 2 for 1. And then I'll get the demographics and I'll see the reach. But really, what I've gotten the most return on my investment has been peer to peer, like therapist marketing, and my website. So having a SEO optimized website that if people
Mhm.
Google me in my area, because I'm so clear,
Right.
if you type in somatic EMDR in Orlando, Florida, my name comes up on the first page.
Got it.
And so I don't know if I answered your question. I feel like I
Oh, you
kind of went
absolutely
around a little
did.
bit, but
You generalized it and then made it personal, which is perfect. I think it gives people a lot to think about because it can be very overwhelming. I'm
oh
sure you would
yeah,
agree. When people are
yes,
starting their own practices, there are
yes,
all of these different programs. Should I get a consultant or join a mastermind? And then there's all of these steps to the process. And what makes the most sense to invest in early on? What can I maybe tackle later on? And we
mm-hmm.
don't always necessarily know how it's going to play out for us.
Right,
And so I think it's so
yeah,
helpful for people to hear at different stages from people that are in our stage of practice and that have kind of had a different type of journey and
sure.
still found success and abundance
Mm-hmm.
and been able to pivot successful. So I think that was
Yeah,
great. Is there
and
anything that I haven't
yeah.
asked that you would want to make sure to mention? And
Ooh, that's a fun question. I would just say,
right up.
yeah, I would just say that if you are a therapist wanting to market, don't be scared to put yourself out there. I know it can be scary, and I remember the first few times that I would just cold email a colleague and go like, "Hi," and just trust that if people don't have the space or if their plate is as full as they would like, that they'll say
Sure.
no. But I've just the two things that I think would be helpful if I were starting back, what I'd love to hear is there's so many free resources for therapists. Join some of those groups.
Yeah.
Permission to not do all things, not join all of them, but find one or two that resonate with you, and find kind of an online community that you can, or an in-person community, but find a community that you can brainstorm with.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is, when don't be scared to initiate and reach out to other people. Um,
Mm-hmm. It
whether
gets
it's
easier.
it does. It gets easier. And as folks say, yes, let's have a virtual Zoom, and you do a 30-minute and it's not awful, you're like, okay, maybe I can do it again. And it's just
Yeah.
it gets easier. It really does.
Well, and I would also say to not get discouraged. I can remember in the beginning when I was trying to network and I didn't always get calls back.
Yeah.
Or I've recently tried to build a group of group practice owners because
Hmm.
that has a lot of its own nuances
Sure.
and didn't always get the responses that I was looking for. And I think the key for me was looking at it as if every single person that I reached out with had responded, I would have been overwhelmed. The
Yeah.
ones that were meant to reach out were the ones that really
Mhm.
resonated with something that I said, where their interest was piqued. And so they end up being more committed to this group that we've formed. We meet on a monthly basis or the exchange of referrals or whatever the case may be. So I would also say to people to not get discouraged if you're not always getting a call back. Everybody is
Absolutely.
busy. We all have to
Yes.
continually prioritize. And just because somebody might not get back to you right away, you may have put yourself on their radar.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example. I was doing a course,
Mm-hmm.
and the course had a little chat feature, and somebody reached out to me through that chat feature. I didn't
Okay.
know it was there because I was using it on one device and it didn't pop up. And she said, "Hey, I'm in your area. We're in the same course. I'd love to connect." And I didn't see it. 6 months later, I opened the thing and saw her message.
Go figure.
And I reached out immediately and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I just saw this now.
Yeah.
I wasn't in, and would love to connect with you if you're still interested."
That's such a
And
great
we
example.
did, and we had it. We connected, and we're probably not going to be hanging out on a regular basis, but just that one touch point interaction.
For
Now I
sure.
know who she is. She knows who I am, and
Yeah.
that it doesn't have to be a long commitment. You don't have
Right.
to sign up to meet monthly. That's great, but it doesn't have to be a long term
True.
commitment. It can just be a touch point.
Right. People can be in your life for a season,
Yeah,
for a reason.
there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's such a
absolutely.
good example.
Yeah,
So let people know how they can find you online, if they want to
yeah.
follow you, if they want to work with you, if they're
Sure.
interested in an intensive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am licensed in Florida and Georgia. So if somebody wants to do EMDR or therapy in one of those two states, um, or if they are interested in doing EMDR consultation or come to Florida for an intensive, you can always do that too. If you want to kind of partner like a little retreat with some work, it's kind of fun to come to Florida
I
for
love
that.
it.
But if anyone wants to find me, the best places to find me are on my website. So it's RebecaGilbert.com. And my name is funny. So if it looks wrong, it's right. My Rebecca is it's one C. So Rebeca. If you're not sure, I also bought the domain that is spelled double C because people were buying. So I have both domains.
Yeah, that was smart.
But RebecaGilbert.com. And I'll occasionally post on Facebook and Instagram. So if you go to my website, the links to follow the social media are there. But my website is the best place to find me and see if we might be a good fit to work together. Or if you're a colleague that wants to network, send me a message too.
Yes,
And I'd love to
we're
connect.
very open to that.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And today
Yeah.
is a key point. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate the insights that you shared and a little bit of the background of your journey because it is a unique one. And I am so glad to hear the place that you're at and how it has all worked out for you. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for being on the
Thanks for
show.
having me. I really do appreciate it, Julia. Thank you.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.